Welcome to this explainer. I want you to think for a moment about the modern hustle. Day in and day out, we're constantly pushing, striving, and honestly, just exhausting ourselves in this endless pursuit of titles, status, and recognition. We build our own little empires, right? Whether that's at the office, on social media, or just within our own social circles. But what happens when we pull the curtain back on all that ambition? Okay, let's dive into this. How much weight do you actually give to the pursuit of wealth, status, and power? This question is right at the heart of a truly profound 19th century philosophical text by Baha. It's a piece of writing that fundamentally challenges our deep obsession with worldly success and really forces us to take a hard look in the mirror. But to answer this question, the author doesn't just, give us a dry lecture. Instead, he shares an incredibly vivid childhood memory that completely changes everything. Section 1. The Grand Royal Puppet Show, a childhood memory of grandeur. So the author takes us all the way back to his youth in 19th century Tehran. This was during a lavish 7-day wedding festivity for his older brother. To cap off these massive celebrations, a grand play called Shah Sultan Salim was presented to an audience packed with princes, dignitaries, and basically the absolute elite of the capital. The author watched from an upper room as these tiny, handspan-tall figures emerged from a tent. First, you have the king's arrival. It's complete with footmen, executioners, and this haughty king wearing a royal diadem. Then, an execution. A thief is brought in and beheaded right there on the spot, complete with fake blood. Next, word of a rebellion arrives. And finally, a cannon battle. We're talking a literal booming of miniature artillery as the king dispatches his regiments to quell the uprising. It was this perfect, tiny reflection of the pomp, the violence, and the utter chaos of a real kingdom. Section 2. Into the box. The illusion broken. Then, the booming cannons stop, the royal audience ends, and the curtain is drawn. After 20 minutes of total silence, a single man casually walks out from behind the tent. He isn't leading an army, he's not wearing a crown, he is simply carrying a basic wooden box under his arm. When the young author asks what happened to all that grand display, the puppet master replies, all this lavish display, the king, the princes, and the ministers, their pomp and glory, their might and power, everything you saw, are now contained within this box. And this brilliantly illustrates the core narrative shift of our source material. In a single instant, an entire empire, with all its life and death stakes, completely vanishes. Section 3. The illusion of vanity. Human glory is fleeting. Let's move to and see how this builds, because that single moment triggered a massive philosophical epiphany for the author. From that day forward, when he looked at the grand trappings of the real world, the real kings, the real wealth, the real status, he saw them as holding no more weight or consequence than a single grain of mustard seed. It was all just a larger version of that same exact puppet show. On one side, we have the outward trappings, the armies, the visible treasures, the proud souls strutting around on the world's stage. But on the other side, we have the inevitable reality. It all eventually passes into the confines of the grave, exactly like those puppets going into the box. The text notes that those possessed of true insight actually see the extinction of human glory before it even begins. They know the show is temporary. Section 4. Lessons for the living. How to traverse a transient world. So, the crucial point is, why does this 19th century reflection matter to us today, amidst our emails, our meetings, and our modern ambitions? Well, because the outward trappings will inevitably vanish into the grave, just like the puppets into the box. We really shouldn't base our lives on accumulating them. Instead, the text urges us to conduct our brief span of life using 4 grounding principles: sincerity, fairness, reason, and justice. These are the things that hold actual weight when the superficial drama fades away. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it perfectly reframes our daily anxieties. Just look at that quote. All this conflict, contention, and vainglory have ever been and will ever be like unto the play and pastimes of children. Think about your most stressful daily battles, the office politics, the keeping up appearances. This text is practically begging us to step back, look at those conflicts from the upper room, and recognize them for what they often are. They're just mere childhood games on a very temporary stage. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. It is so easy to get swept up in the noise, the trumpets, and the smoke of our own daily puppet shows. But when the play ends, and the curtain inevitably falls on this brief span of life, what will be left in your box?